The sky over New York had been wrong for 3 days. Not dark wrong, a bruised purple that pulsed like infected flesh, lit from within by the descending silhouettes of Xylar warships. Each vessel was a kilometer of chitinous armor and plasma cannons, their hulls rippling with bioluminescent veins that throbbed in rhythm with some alien heartbeat. Captain Marcus Voss watched them fall from the reinforced windows of the Cheyenne Mountain bunker. Behind him, 12,000 civilians huddled in the dark, families, scientists, the last remnants of North American command. The screens on the wall showed the S and ME Chinese letter across every time zone: London burning, Tokyo cratered, Shanghai a glass desert. "The Atlantic Fleet is gone," a technician whispered, her voice cracked. "Sir, the entire Atlantic Fleet." Marcus didn't blink. He'd watched the carriers die from the observation deck, miles of steel and fire torn apart like paper as Xylar energy lances punched through their reactors. 30,000 souls, gone in 90 seconds. "They're hailing us again," another officer said. "Put it through." The main screen flickered, an image resolved, not a face, because the Xylar had no faces, only clusters of sensory appendages around a central maw that dripped with something that might have been lubricant or might have been saliva. The translation algorithm struggled with their language, which was less speech and more pressure, concepts forced directly into the listener's neural interface. "Surrender, your DFNSES are null, your fleets are fragments, your world is claimed." Marcus felt the words press against his skull. Around him, civilians clutched their ears, children cried. He stepped closer to the camera. "What are your terms?" Silence. The Xylar commander, if that word applied, tilted its sensory cluster in what might have been confusion. "TRMS, there are no TRMS. You will be PROCSSED. Your biomass WILL serve. Your technology will be absorbed. This is not negotiation. This is notification." Marcus nodded slowly. Behind him, he heard someone sob. "Notification received," he said. He cut the channel. The bunker went quiet. 12,000 people looked at him, some with hope, most with nothing left but the reflex to follow orders. Marcus turned to face them, his uniform torn, his face smeared with ash from the surface, his eyes holding something that made the sobbing stop. "They want us to surrender," he said. "They think we're finished." He pulled a data chip from his breast pocket. It was old, military-grade, pre-digital, the kind that required physical insertion. He held it up so everyone could see. 2 weeks ago, before the first ships arrived, a scientist named Dr. Elena Vasquez sent this to every remaining military outpost. She called it Project Gravedigger. Command dismissed it as too extreme, too brutal. He inserted the chip into the main console. "The Xylar destroyed our command structure. They killed our generals, our presidents, our councils. They think that means we have no one left to give orders." On screen, a single line of text appeared. "Project Gravedigger, Phase 1 standing by." Marcus smiled. It was not a kind smile. "They're wrong." He pressed his thumb to the authorization pad. "Humanity doesn't need leaders to fight, we just need a reason." The screen changed. Across every remaining transmitter on Earth, every ham radio, every emergency beacon, every civilian frequency still alive, a message began to broadcast. It wasn't a speech. It wasn't a plea. It was a single line of coordinates, and beneath it, 4 words. "They took everything. Take it back." Marcus turned back to the camera, the one he knew the Xylar were still watching through. "You wanted to know what we'll do," he said quietly. "Now you'll see." On the surface, in the ruins of 100 cities, survivors stopped hiding. They stopped crying. They stopped praying. They started moving. And in the command ship orbiting above, the Xylar fleet master felt something it had never experienced in 3 centuries of conquest. Not fear, confusion. Because the human transmission wasn't a surrender, it wasn't a negotiation. It was a call to war from a species that was already dead. The Xylar would learn in 17 seconds that dead things can still bite. Fleet Master Xylar 7 had conquered 14 species across 3 galactic arms. He had watched civilizations burn, planets crack, and gods weep. He had never once revised a battle plan after deployment. He revised on hour 47. Report, he hissed to his tactical cluster. His command chamber on the Sovereign of Silence smelled of ozone and victory, or it had until 6 hours ago. Subcommander, the surface resistance has changed. Changed how? The tactical officer's sensory appendages flattened, a sign of distress Xyler 7 had only seen before battle, never during. They are no longer defending population centers. They are no longer defending anything. They are attacking. On the main hololith, the orbital view of Earth showed something impossible. Red dots, human combatants, had spread like an infection, not in formation, not in organized units. They were everywhere, sewers, subways, the rubble of skyscrapers, and they were firing at anything that moved. Our ground forces report casualties exceeding 90,000 in the last 3 standard hours. Xyler 7 feeding appendage twitched, 90,000 drones. No, Subcommander, 90,000 warriors. The chamber went cold. Show me. The hololith zoomed to a city the humans had called Tokyo. What remained was a graveyard of glass and steel, but the graveyard was moving. Shapes, human shapes, crawled from every shadow. They carried weapons that shouldn't have worked, plasma rifles powered by car batteries, explosive charges made from mining equipment, knives forged from scrap metal. And they were winning. Impossible, Xyler 7 said. Their command structure is destroyed. Their supply lines are shattered. Without coordination, they should be. They are coordinated, Subcommander. The tactical officer hesitated. They are using neural links, civilian grade. Every human with an implant has become a node. They are not following orders. They are sharing information in real time. When one sees a weakness, 10,000 know it in less than a heartbeat. Xyler 7 turned away from the hololith. His carapace itched, a physiological response to stress he had not experienced since his first battle, 300 years ago. Send reinforcements, all available ground forces. I want those cities. Sub-Commander. Another voice, navigation, panicked. The asteroid belt, something is emerging. The hololith shifted. Xyler 7 watched as sensors painted a nightmare. From the debris field between Mars and Jupiter, ships were coming, not the sleek warships the Xyler had destroyed 2 days ago. These were wrong. Cargo vessels welded to military hulls, mining rigs fitted with railguns, colony ships armored with asteroid rock, a fleet of 1,700 vessels, none of them designed for combat, all of them coming anyway. They were hiding, the navigation officer breathed. In the debris, we assumed the asteroids were. I know what we assumed. Xyler 7 mind raced. 14 conquered species. Not one had done this. Not one had taken the wreckage of their defeat and built something uglier. Hail their flagship. The channel opened. A human face appeared, female, middle-aged, with gray hair and eyes that had not slept in days. She wore a civilian flight jacket. No rank, no insignia. You are making a mistake, Xyler 7 said. The woman tilted her head. Am I? Your fleet is scrap, your weapons are inadequate, you cannot. 17 seconds, she interrupted. Excuse me. The Atlantic fleet lasted 17 seconds against your battle group. We timed it. Do you know what we learned in those 17 seconds? Xyler 7 said nothing. We learned that your point defense can't track more than 600 incoming targets simultaneously. We learned that your shields collapse under sustained kinetic impact from multiple vectors. We learned that your commanders don't adapt, they follow protocols. She smiled. It was the most terrifying expression Xyler 7 had ever seen. We don't have protocols anymore, we have anger. She cut the channel. On the hololith, the human fleet accelerated. 1,700 ships, none of them built to fight, all of them built to die, and to make dying expensive. Xyler 7 opened his maw to give the order to fire. He never got the chance. The first wave of human ships didn't shoot, they rammed. 17 seconds later, the Xyler battle group had lost 42 warships, and humanity had just begun. The Sovereign of Silence burned. Xyler 7 watched from an escape pod as his flagship, 2 centuries of Xyler engineering, the pride of the Imperial Navy, tumbled toward Earth's atmosphere. Its hull had been peeled open by 3 separate collisions. Its reactors had gone critical. The bioluminescent veins that had once pulsed with victory now flickered like a dying heartbeat. Sub-Commander, his tactical officer, rasped through the pod's comm. The officer was missing two sensory appendages. We have lost 73% of the fleet. Xyler 7 feeding appendage hung limp, 73. The humans, they do not value their own survival. They launched themselves as projectiles. Their crews knew they would die. They did it anyway. On the tactical display, what remained of it, Xyler 7 watched the impossible unfold. The human civilian fleet had been reduced to less than 300 ships, but the Xyler orbital presence had been shattered. Fragments of warships now orbited Earth like a second asteroid belt. And on the surface, the ground war had become something else entirely. The humans are not trying to hold territory, the tactical officer continued. They are not trying to protect infrastructure, they are. He struggled to find words. They are hunting. Xyler 7 pulled up ground feeds. What he saw made his carapace ripple with something he refused to name. Human civilians had formed hunting parties, armed with scavenged weapons, night vision, and the neural links that now connected every surviving human like a single, vengeful mind. They stalked Xyler patrols through the ruins of their own cities. They didn't fight fair. They didn't fight with honor. They fought like predators. Show me the human leaders, Xyler 7 demanded. There must be command nodes, strategic centers, cut off the head. There are no heads, Sub-Commander. The tactical officer's voice had gone hollow. We have analyzed their neural network for the last 6 hours. There is no central command. There are no generals. Every human with an implant is simultaneously a soldier and a scout and a strategist. When one dies, the network redistributes. When 1,000 die, the network adapts. Xyler 7 closed his sensory cluster. What are you telling me? I am telling you that we are fighting a species that has turned its entire population into a distributed intelligence. They do not need orders, they do not need supplies, they need only reason, and we have given them one. The escape pod's proximity alarm shrieked. Xyler 7 opened his cluster just in time to see a human shuttle bearing down on them, not military, just a repurposed orbital transport with a railgun welded to its nose. Surrender, a voice crackled over open frequency. Or don't, we don't actually care. Xyler 7 tactical officer reached for his sidearm. I will not be taken alive by. The railgun round turned the escape pod into confetti. Xyler 7 tumbled through vacuum, his carapace cracked, his breathing syrup thick. His last conscious thought, before the human shuttle's grappling arms closed around him, was not of defeat. It was of mathematics. 14 species conquered, each had fought with fleets and armies and strategies. Each had surrendered when their command structure collapsed. But humanity had no command structure. Humanity was the command structure, every individual a general, every civilian a soldier, every child a node in a network of pure, undiluted spite. And as Xyler 7 was dragged into the human shuttle, he heard a sound that would haunt him for the rest of his short life. Laughter. Not cruel laughter, not triumphant laughter. Relieved laughter. Because the humans knew now what the Xyler had not understood, they weren't fighting a war of conquest anymore. They were fighting a war of extinction, and humanity had no intention of being the species that lost. In the ruins of London, a 12-year-old girl with a neural link and a hunting knife whispered into the network, "They're afraid. I can taste it. Push harder." Across the planet, 3 billion humans pushed. The Xyler High Council convened an emergency session for the first time in 600 years. They met in the Obsidian Chamber, a sphere of polished dark matter that orbited their homeworld, Xyler Prime, like a black pearl. Every member of the council was there, from the merchant lords to the war masters to the 5 priests of the eternal pattern. The holographic display in the center of the chamber showed a map of their empire. Red wounds bled across it like cuts in flesh. The Taraxis sector has gone dark, the senior war master reported. His name was Vexil 3, and he had not slept in 70 hours. No communications, no patrol responses. We have sent 3 scout vessels. Land, and nothing, they do not return. The merchant lord of the outer colonies drummed her claws. Explain how a species with no fleet, no industry, and no command structure has become a galactic threat in less than one standard month. Vexel 3 activated the display. Numbers cascaded. Because we made 3 errors, Council. First, we assumed their leadership was centralized. It is not. Second, we assumed their population would break under sustained orbital bombardment. They did not. And the third error. Vexel 3 paused. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter. We assumed they would not leave their solar system. The display shifted. New data emerged, sensor ghosts, fragmented reports, civilian transmissions intercepted and translated. Humanity had left Earth. Not with fleets, not with armies. They had left with everything. Every ship that could still fly, every asteroid miner that could be retrofitted, every cargo hauler that could be armed. They had scattered into the void like seeds from a dying flower, and wherever they landed, they took root in Xylar soil. 2 weeks ago, Vexel 3 continued, a human vessel entered the Uxmal system. It was a civilian fuel transport with no weapons and a crew of 7. Our local defense force ignored it as non-threatening. He paused. That transport detonated its engines inside Uxmal's orbital shipyard. The resulting explosion destroyed 12 dreadnoughts under construction and killed 40,000 Xylar workers. The chamber went silent. The week before that, a human mining ship redirected a Class 4 asteroid into the Epsilon colony. Impact yield, 200 megatons. Colony status, gone. And last night, Vexel 3 whispered, they did something worse. The display showed a Xylar cargo ship, its hull stamped with Imperial insignia. But the cargo ship was drifting, its running lights dark. 3 hours ago, this vessel arrived at Xylar Prime. It transmitted Imperial codes we now believe were captured from the battle group at Earth. It requested emergency docking. Station control granted permission. The display switched to internal security footage. The cargo bay doors opened. And things poured out. Not humans, not weapons, living organisms, microscopic, crystalline, from the deep thermal vents of Earth's ocean floor. Extremophiles that had evolved to survive boiling temperatures, crushing pressure, and radiation that would kill anything else. Anything else except Xylar. These organisms, Vexel 3 said, are now multiplying in our orbital station's water recycling system. They are consuming our filtration membranes. They are adapting to our biology. The merchant lord leaned forward. Are you telling me the humans have weaponized bacteria? I am telling you they have weaponized everything. There is nothing they will not use, no tactic they will not employ, no line they will not cross. In the obsidian chamber, the priests of the eternal pattern began to chant, a ritual of contemplation that had not been needed since the founding of the empire. One of them stopped. The humans, the priest said slowly, are broadcasting a transmission. On all frequencies, it appears to be a recording. Play it. The chamber filled with a human voice, male, old, tired. It was the final transmission from Earth's central government, recorded 6 hours before the Xylar invasion began. To any civilization that might hear this message, Earth is under attack. We do not know if we will survive. We do not know if anyone will remember us. But if you are listening, know this: we are not afraid to die. We are afraid to die without making certain our killers understand one thing. The pause. You cannot destroy what you do not understand, and you do not understand us. The transmission ended. Then another voice came through, younger, female, the same woman who had spoken to Xylar 7 from the civilian fleet. That was before, she said quietly. This is now. She spoke 4 words that would echo through Xylar history for the rest of their existence. No sanctuary, no mercy, no survivors. On Xylar Prime, the obsidian chamber's lights flickered. The humans had found their way home. And they weren't coming to negotiate. Xylar Prime burned. Not from orbital bombardment, the humans had no ships capable of that. Not from ground invasion, the humans lacked the numbers. Xylar Prime burned from inside. Captain Marcus Voss stood on the bridge of the Gravedigger, a ship that had been a luxury liner 3 months ago and was now the flagship of humanity's revenge fleet. Through the viewport, he watched the Xylar homeworld turn against itself. Every human who had survived Earth had received the same mission: infiltrate, spread out, break things. When they had, industrial complexes exploded as human saboteurs overloaded reactors. Communication arrays went silent as human hackers flooded networks with junk data. Food distribution systems collapsed as human operatives poisoned supply lines, not with toxins, but with information, redirecting shipments to dead ends. "Sir," his communications officer said, "the Xylar High Council is broadcasting. They want to surrender." Marcus kept his eyes on the viewport. On what terms? They didn't specify. Then no. The officer hesitated. "Sir, they're offering." "I heard you." On the display, a tactical map showed the positions of every human ship in the Xylar system. There were 347, against the remnants of the Xylar home fleet, 12,000 vessels. By any sane military calculation, humanity should have been extinct by now. But Marcus had stopped believing in sane military calculations the day he watched New York fall. "Bring up the shipyards," he ordered. The viewport zoomed. In orbit around Xylar Prime's moon, the massive orbital construction platforms that had built the Xylar fleet for 1,000 years hung silent. Their workers had fled, their power cores had been sabotaged. And their contents, the half-finished warships, the stockpiled weapons, the raw materials, had been reclaimed. By humanity. 3 months ago, Marcus said quietly, we were refugees hiding in bunkers. Today we control 14% of Xylar orbital infrastructure. Tomorrow it will be 20%. Next week it will be all of it. He turned to face his crew, survivors from a dozen destroyed cities, 100 shattered units, 1,000 broken families. They wanted our world, so we took theirs. They wanted our resources, so we consumed theirs. They wanted our extinction. He paused. Now they get to watch us thrive in the ashes of everything they built. The communications officer raised a hand. "Sir, the Xylar fleet is moving. They're forming a defensive perimeter around the capital." Marcus smiled, finally. He opened a channel to every human ship in the system. "All units, this is Gravedigger Actual. The enemy has decided to make a stand. They're protecting their capital, their council, their pride. That means they're scared. That means they've stopped thinking." He watched as the Xylar fleet formed its perfect, textbook defensive formation, the same formation they had used for 1,000 years against 1,000 enemies. The same formation that humans had spent the last 3 months learning to break. Execute Phase 7. Across the Xylar system, 347 human ships did something the Xylar had never seen before. They stopped fighting. They stopped moving. And then they disappeared. Not cloaking, not jamming, they simply ceased to exist on every sensor. What? The Xylar fleet master began. And then the first human ship reappeared. Inside the defensive perimeter, inside the capital's orbital shield, inside the Xylar fleet master's blind spot. "Human vessels are materializing at point-blank range," the Xylar tactical officer screamed. "They're using our own construction platforms as anchor points. They've modified our technology. They're jumping through our networks." The human ships opened fire. Not with human weapons, with Xylar weapons captured from the shipyards turned against their creators. Plasma lances tore through Xylar hulls. Energy beams bisected dreadnoughts. Railguns fired Xylar ammunition into Xylar reactors. In the obsidian chamber, the High Council watched their fleet die. "How?" the Merchant Lord whispered. "How did they learn to use our weapons? How did they learn to jump through our networks?" The last remaining priest of the eternal pattern pointed a trembling claw at the display. "The ghosts," he said. "Look at the ghosts." On the tactical map, the human ships were no longer marked as enemy vessels. They were marked as Xylar. Every human neural link was now connected to every captured Xylar system. Every human soldier was now wearing Xylar armor. Every human ship was now running Xylar software. The humans hadn't just stolen Xyler technology. They had become the Xyler, a perfect mimic, a digital wolf in mechanical sheep's clothing. Marcus Voss opened a channel to the obsidian chamber. You asked what we would do with no mercy, he said. Now you know. He looked at the Xyler capital, a city of spires and light, a civilization that had existed for 10,000 years, a species that had killed 14 worlds. Burn it. The Xyler High Council had 17 seconds to regret ever finding Earth. 17 seconds was not enough. The war lasted 11 more days. Not because the Xyler resisted, they had no resistance left after the fall of their capital. Not because humanity needed the time, they could have finished it in 11 hours. The war lasted 11 more days because humanity wanted the Xyler to watch. Captain Marcus Voss, now Fleet Commander Voss, though he refused the title, stood on the surface of Xyler Prime for the first time. The sky was still smoke, the ground was still ash. The obsidian chamber, the heart of Xyler civilization for a millennium, was a rubble field. Behind him, 3 million human soldiers moved through the ruins. They weren't looting, they weren't celebrating. They were counting. Every Xyler military facility documented, every weapons cache located, every commander who had ordered the attack on Earth identified. Sir, a lieutenant said, approaching with a datapad, we've found the last of the High Council. They're in a bunker beneath the merchant district. They're asking for terms. Marcus took the datapad. He read the terms the council had proposed: surrender of all military forces, payment of reparations, demilitarization of the Xyler home system. He handed the datapad back. No, sir. They don't get terms, they didn't give terms. The lieutenant swallowed. What do we do with them then? Marcus looked up at the smoke-choked sky. Somewhere up there, the gravedigger orbited with its captured Xyler weapons and its human crew, and its mission to ensure that what happened to Earth would never happen again. Take them into custody, they'll stand trial. Trial on whose authority? Marcus smiled. It was not a kind smile, but it was tired. 3 months of war had carved new lines into his face, new gray into his hair, new weight onto his shoulders. On humanity's authority, we're the ones who decide what justice means now. Over the next year, the galaxy watched as humanity rebuilt. Not just Earth, though Earth rose from its ashes like a phoenix, its cities reconstructed, its oceans cleansed, its people united by trauma and triumph, but the rest of the galaxy too. The 14 species the Xyler had conquered found their chains broken by human fleets. The Xyler military caste, those who survived, faced judgment for crimes against sentient life. And the Xyler themselves, the civilians, the workers, the children, found something they had never expected from the species they had tried to exterminate. Mercy. Not forgiveness, never forgiveness, but mercy, the choice to spare, the decision to be better than the enemy that had tried to destroy them. Why, a young Xyler asked Marcus on the day of his retirement, why spare us? Marcus looked at the Xyler, not a soldier, just a child, with confused sensory appendages and a voice that trembled. Because you're not your parents, he said, because you didn't choose this war, because if we become what you were, you win, and I'll be damned if I let you win. He walked away. Centuries later, in a galaxy that had learned to fear humanity's wrath and respect humanity's mercy, a child asked a question. The child was not human. She was a Xyler several generations removed from the war, born in a time when Xyler and human could walk the same streets without fear. She was looking at a monument, a massive sculpture in the center of what had once been the obsidian chamber's ruins. The sculpture showed a shield broken in half. Why is it broken? The child asked. Her mother, human, because love had survived even the war, looked up at the monument. Tears filled her eyes, but she smiled. Because we never needed one, she said. We thought we did. We built shields and walls and fleets of warships. We thought they would protect us. She took her daughter's hand. Then the Xyler came. They broke our shields. They shattered our walls. They destroyed everything we thought made us safe. But you won, the child said. The history files say you won. Yes, the mother said, we won because we realized something. Shields don't protect you. Walls don't protect you. The only thing that protects you is the willingness to keep fighting, no matter what, no matter who, no matter the cost. She looked down at her daughter. That's why the shield is broken, because we don't need it anymore. We have something better. What? The mother knelt so she was eye level with the child. We have each other, we have our anger, but we have our love too. We have our memory of what happened and our determination to make sure it never happens again. We have our scars and we have our hope. She touched the child's chest, where her heart beat beneath Xylar carapace and human warmth. That's what saved us, not shields, not walls. The child looked at the broken shield. Then she looked at the sky, where human and Xylar ships flew together, where colonies of mixed species thrived, where a galaxy that had once trembled now breathed. The history files say something else, the child whispered. What's that? They say humanity responded with brutal no mercy. The mother was quiet for a long moment. We did, she said finally, to those who deserved it, to those who gave us no choice. She stood, lifting the child into her arms. But mercy, she said, is the other side of that coin, and mercy is harder, mercy is braver, mercy is what makes us human. She carried her daughter away from the monument, into a city that had been built on the ashes of war. Behind them the broken shield caught the light of twin suns, one human, one Xylar. And for the first time in galactic history, that light meant something new. Not fear, not conquest, promise, the end.